We're here today to sort of share more about essential education and see what they're all about. We're going to split the interview into two sections. So the first half will focus more on what they do within the schools and the education system. Yep. And then we'll focus the second half more on how they also support families. So I'll kick it off with the first question. So Emma, if you could just tell me a little bit about the development of essential education.
Okay, so I'm a trained teacher. I've been working in education for over 20 years now, but I'm also a psychologist. Oh, wow. So education and psychology is just my thing. So I won't go through all the reasons why I ended up in the classroom and not in a psychologist room, but that's what happened. I wanted to become an ed psych, but I just loved the classroom and I love children so much that really captured me. But while I was there, I also had this love of understanding how we can reduce barriers to learning. Like, so if there was any children in my class and I could see that they weren't catching on to the traditional approach, I was naturally geared towards them. Some people may argue a bit too much, but I was geared towards them to understand why they may have these barriers to learning, and really felt that that's where my passion really started. So before I even trained as a teacher, actually, I was going down two routes. It was either public policy or psychology with children. And I did the public policy for a little while, not for me, and then decided that I'm going to go down the children route, and worked in a lot of special schools and a lot of like alternative education and PRUs. So that was kind of me before I even entered the classroom. So just going into classroom, it was just a natural thing to understand barriers to learning and try to do what I like to talk about now, early intervention and stopping children from being left behind. So that's a bit around how I developed professionally. And then the Essential Education Group has become just an extension of my career in the classroom. Understanding that there's these gaps in the system, that people aren't always getting what they need, are always getting the information they need quickly, because there's quite a few delays, shall we say, in the system as it is. And so people aren't getting the information quickly. So I really wanted to work on the ground. I wanted to work with schools who needed hands-on support, but most importantly, I wanted to work with families who just needed a little bit more information and a sounding board. And that's where the Essential Education Group has developed from that passion.
I wish you were at my school. So I'll move on to the next question. What do you do in the consultancy part of your business?
So the consultancy part is a really crucial part of the Essential Education Group. It's the part where I have not the most impact, because I think everything I do has impact, obviously, but it has the most impact because I'm with people for a longer amount of time. So my consultancy packages are from 5 days up to 20 days. And some people have bespoke packages, which are a lot more than that. I'll name those schools right now, but they like to keep me on board, which is great. And so in the consultancy, it's a mixture of things. So if I was just to say from a few of the schools that I'm working with right now, one of the schools I started off doing an audit, which I know we're going to discuss shortly. And from that audit, the consultancy was from what happened from that audit and what was seen in that audit for me to support them in the next steps. It's now completely evolved to me supporting their middle leaders through my coaching program and supporting the middle leaders to implement different things like effective observations in the classroom. So my consultancy is really varied. I can be in the classroom with the children, with the staff, or I can be with SLT supporting their vision, understanding their processes. And I really love that part of what I do.
Wow, okay. So on to that. What do you do in your audits then?
So the audits that I do are also a crucial kind of clog in the work that I do. Consultancy seems to work for schools who understand where they are, but just want to see where their next steps can be. And they want a nice impartial voice who doesn't know their setting and all the things that come with it. With audits, it's usually schools going, we really want to know where our baseline is. We want to know what's happening in this area or that area of SEND, and we would like somebody to do that impartially, because we're kind of seeing things from SLT, we're seeing things from the classroom, but actually if we can have some different eyes in, we can start to see what our action plan should truly be. And so what I find with the audits, it's usually for schools who are on that journey, who are questioning themselves about, are we, one, doing the best job that we can do at the moment, or are we, two, having to figure out what the next step should be, and understanding them just a little bit more from the point of view of their cohort and their actual children. So audits are a really integral part of what I do. And, you know, you can have a 3-day audit or a 5-day audit, depending on the size of the school. That could be a completely bespoke size audit as well. But it just depends. But I really do enjoy audits. It kind of I get stuck in and can understand the school's culture and where the school's going through that process.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you're also a coach. So what does that look like for you?
Coaching's been one of these interesting, evolving things for me. So I trained as a coach in one of my previous jobs as a teacher. So I was coaching colleagues. So I trained as a coach then, and it was kind of coaching through the classroom, coaching colleagues kind of work. So I've always had a kind of coaching approach to me in the work that I do. As I started the Essential Education Group, and I realised really what I really wanted to do was to move systems on, move people on. And one of the best ways to do that is through coaching. So I embarked on doing more training around my coaching, understanding my coaching a little bit more. And now this is part of the package that I offer. And so coaching is a little bit separate to my special educational needs work. It's all integrated, but it's a little bit separate because it's about the individual leader, the individual teacher, whoever I'm being asked to coach, and their personal development. And personal development means a whole host of things. It might be that it's about their personal practice in the classroom, or it may be what happens with life outside of the classroom and how those two things interlink, and how we can ensure that they're making the right decisions for them so that they can be the best possible leader, best possible practitioner. So I really love my coaching work. It gives me a little bit of a different balance to the SEND work that I do. And it's a real pleasure to sit with people with their light bulb moment, which is the teacher in me. So that bit hasn't left. So when I was in the classroom and the children used to have their light bulb moments, it was my thing. And now that I'm in coaching and people come back and said, you know, that thing you said to me last week, Emma, or the week before, and I'll go, yes, like, wow. I love that moment. I had a few of them this morning. That's why I'm so psyched about it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Then we'll move on to the next one. You also have courses and training. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think obviously one of the most important parts of us as professionals is our CPD, our continuing professional development, and schools are always investing in this space. But as you might have realised, and other people may have realised, that special educational needs hasn't been an area that has been highly invested in, should I say, in terms of training. And so this is something, again, from the Essential Education Group that I really like to promote. I have accredited training with the CPD company, so I'm really happy about that. That has been developed from my own knowledge, but also with additional support from others. And this training is part of a package of support that I do with schools. So, you know, in the last month, I've trained over 140 teachers, maybe more, which has been fantastic on these courses. So, you know, I've got accredited courses in advanced autism. I call it advanced autism because it's not autism awareness, this is autism practice. This is what's going to happen in your classrooms when a child comes in. This is about understanding how autism may impact the learning process, may impact the way that you have to teach. So that's why it's called the Advanced Autism course. So it's not an awareness course. If you want an awareness course, it's not the right course. I also have a Down syndrome in the classroom course, one that's close to my heart, but also one that I've worked with children in the past. And it's about understanding Down syndrome, because I think so many people haven't really got their heads around that little picture, because everybody unique, but also understanding them as learners, because, you know, it's very much known as an intellectual disability, when actually, is it? Or is it that we're not actually seeing the intellect in those children? And it's about creating space and creating that new knowledge for people to go out and seek more about the children that they're seeing, When you look at the good practice guide as well for Down syndrome, it encourages that those children should be in mainstream schools. So if that is the case, we need to make sure that we are well trained on those children and ensure that they get the best possible education, not just care, education. And that's what I try to promote in this particular course. I have a sensory differences course as well. So understanding senses and sensory differences in the classroom and in life, let's put it generally. Yesterday I trained 7 families in this course yesterday through a school that I'm working with, so that they could understand their child's sensory needs more. Also understanding that if a child's sensory needs are not supported, they are going to find it extremely hard in a mainstream school. And if integration is the aim, which we're hearing a lot about, we have to get to grips with this. We have to get to grips with the idea of sensory differences. So I love this particular course because it really is, for me, one of the first starting points for teachers to understand the sensory profile of their children. And then that then gives them the confidence and the comfortability to be able to engage the cognitive and the learning element. And so that's kind of one of the other courses that I have. I have a development of lots of bespoke courses as well, but they're all accredited. So it's really great to be able to deliver this knowledge and share what I've learned over the years, but also other professionals' knowledge.
Wow, that is really interesting. No, I get what you mean. Like, I feel like there's so many different learning styles. So moving on to the next one. Which bit of the job do you love the most?
As you can see, I probably love all that I've created in the Essential Education Group. I absolutely love it. But I think if I was going to use one word, it's the transformation. I love the transformation of a family or a school after we've worked together. I love the fact that when I go into a school and they say, Emma, come and see this child you told us to do this with, and the child's a completely different way and they're engaging with school a completely different way, that for me is just the light of what I do. I just love that. And when, you've got very experienced Senkos and teachers saying, my gosh, sitting with you is like an education, it's CPD for us. That again is just a light for me, because I know that I'm creating something for them, that I know that I'm impacting something, not just for the school, but ultimately the child. And if it's the child, then it's the whole unit, that whole family unit that's getting that. So my heart work is with families, really, but every bit of work that I do kind of leads back to ensuring that families have the best possible outcomes. And so, yeah, I just love the transformation part of what I do.
Wow. And then finally, for this section, why should schools consider your services?
Why should they not? So, no, just kidding. I just feel like because we're in a space right now where special educational needs is on the agenda. We know the green paper's out there. We know that there is an inclusion agenda. We know that special schools are overfull. And so it's about understanding that mainstream schools are, unfortunately, some mainstream schools are catching up with a picture that needs to be solid. It needs to be solid now, or we're missing a generation. And so it's about, if you feel that actually working with somebody like myself, or just me, let's make it that way, working with someone like myself is going to help you to have a clarity on your journey or a clarity on a child, that's why I would say to work with me. I'm a little bit like a school improvement person, but a school improvement person who focuses just on SEND. So I'm going to deep dive in your SEND. I'm going to get you to think. I'm going to get you to really unpick what the practice is already. And then I'm going to get you to layer up so that you can move from wherever you are to an outstanding practice. And you may already be outstanding. And it's just about giving you a space for you to think about what you would like to innovate and create next, because I love innovation too. And so just working with me is an opportunity to move from wherever you are and create something better for you and your staff and the children ultimately. So that's what working with me will give you.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you for that. That was really, really interesting. And I definitely think it's something that's needed in education. So moving on to the next section, as you said, you also focus on supporting families. So why do you work with families in the Essential Education Group?
I think everything that I do is ultimately about families. I think families, as we know, are the foundation of our children. The foundation of a family will support a child's development. And I'm all about early intervention. If anyone's ever worked with me, I'm like, let's get in early, let's support the child early, because if we can do that, we can give them more potential and they can find their own potential quicker. And so it's about creating that space for families. When families find themselves with a child who is different, a child who has an additional needs, there is a whole journey there for them. It's a very big journey. For some families, it's okay, we're here, we're going, we're hitting the ground running. For some families, that's a really emotional situation where they've got to work through some layers of things. And I just feel like if somebody can be a bit of a light in there, with a bit of understanding, a real personal understanding, a professional understanding, and the knowledge to move things on, I think that's what I really want to create and have created for the families. So that's why I love working with people. Again, that transformational piece. I don't like to feel that people are stuck. That's my psychology, not wanting to be stuck. And so I don't like to let people feel that. I don't like to see that people feel that they might be. They may be stuck because of the system. They may be stuck because they can't get their child into a good setting. They may be stuck because they haven't understood their child's needs. So I like to be able to support people to feel unstuck. Yeah.
So what can families expect from working with you?
Compassion, 100% compassion. And I meet you where you are. So I am not the type of person that's going to come in and say, you're doing all of this wrong and you need to be thinking again. You know, I'm not a pushy professional in that way. But what I am is you will get a little bit of a gentle, loving push from me when you need to, but you'll also get a whole heap of compassion. And so working with me is about understanding where you are in this moment, understanding your knowledge level at this moment, and again, hopefully moving you on so that you can see your child differently or through a different lens, or just with a little bit more knowledge. And so just creating a space for you to go, I'm thinking this through, I'm having this thought, is really what I want to achieve with parents. Yeah.
Wow. And then moving on, so what are the services that you offer to families?
Oh, okay. So the services that I offer, they're kind of wide and varied, to be honest. So I work with pre-diagnosis. So working on things like screening work and saying, well, yeah, I think you might want to look into that because it sounds like there may be a neurodistinction there. So I do screening work on dyslexia, on ADHD, on ASD, and just general neurodistinction, so that people can say, oh, okay, we might need to think about this a little bit more. And the reason why I do that is because the system's just too slow and people have got questions now. And again, early intervention, let's get in quickly. So if you've got questions, screening work, it doesn't mean that the diagnosis is going to come at the end of that, but you might have some answers at that point. And so that's a really big part of what I do. So I do screening work around sensory needs, and then all the other things that I mentioned previously. And then the one thing that I absolutely love to do with families is my family coaching course. So my family coaching course is that transformational piece. It's about knowing that your child may be pre-diagnosis or actually in diagnosis, have a diagnosis already. And it's about understanding that process, but not just understanding the process, understanding your dynamic. So what I found over the years is that sometimes when families have a child with additional needs, that child's needs centers everything, rightly so. But what then happens is that everybody else's needs may be starting to get slightly reduced as a result. And I give people a space to create their new space, their new, I wouldn't say normal, because what's normal, but their new idea of their world. And so I give them that space so that actually everybody's needs then get a little look in. So what I love about the family coaching course is that I work with the immediate family, I work with the siblings, and I work with the extended family. So that may be grandparents, aunties, uncles, close friends. So everybody's involved in the process, and get a bit of information from me through that process, and then they come up with a communication plan together. So I absolutely love my family coaching work. And then obviously families can just come to me purely for training. Emma, I need a little bit of understanding around sensory needs, fine, jump onto this training with me. And so those are the key things that I do when I work with families.
Okay, so now we're coming to an end. So we're on the final question. Why should families connect with you?
Well, as I said, I work from a really compassionate place. I work from a compassionate place, but it's a compassionate place that is completely backed with knowledge. And this isn't just knowledge because I've got a unique kid. This is knowledge from 20 years plus of my profession, plus my unique child. And so actually, it's about bringing all of that together and creating something very special for you, the families, and adding to your picture. And it is a privilege to me. It's a literal privilege if someone says, Emma, could you work with us as a family? Because you're inviting me into a very vulnerable time. And I'm very privileged to do that. But with me, you get compassion, but you also get knowledge, and you also have a plan. And that's the reason why you should work with me.
Do you have any additional specialist services?
So yes, I am trained in AIT, which is auditory integration training. And this is all about my sensory work. So why I think that's so important is that it's the one space that can impact a child's behaviours, emotions, approach to sleeping, approach to relationships, all of the things that, you know, people will be questioning for their child. So the AIT is a specialised music therapy that supports the ear to develop so that it supports the body to develop. And again, I don't do anything that I'm not sold into. And when I first saw this, I kind of was a bit skeptical myself. Okay, does that really work? And then I did the training and loved the premise behind it because it is all about the sensory systems, which I've discussed already. And then when I did it with my son for the very first time, I realised its power and its actual impact. And every time I have a client, the results are varied for everybody, but every time I have a client, there's a change. So I love this service. It's a 10-day service. It's got before care and after care with myself, but it's a service that I really endorse because I have seen its impacts in my own family, but also in others. And I really enjoyed administrating that. It's very rare that I do it. I only have at least 2 or potentially 3 sometimes slots throughout the year because it is a 10-day service, and you've heard all the other lovely things that I do. So I have to make a real effort to make that block happen. So it is a rare service that I offer, but when I offer it, I really enjoy doing it for families because I can again see that transformation.
How can customers reach out to you and find you?
So I'm on most platforms, to be honest. You can find me on most platforms, either by my name, Emma Pinnock, or by typing in Essential Education Group. I am usually hanging out on Instagram, being all pictures and etc. of me and Melissa Person, or I'm on Facebook. So you can find me quicker there, but you can find me on most platforms, and I will respond, not promptly, but soon. You get a response from me, definitely.
Perfect. Okay, we'll also attach all the links into the captions so you can click them and get there easily. Thank you.
Perfectly great. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.